Hi guys, and welcome back to another video game with the powers. I'm Jake, and in today's video I'll be giving you guys my review of the board game City of Myrkesh, coming to you from Dragon Egg Games, Grindstone Games, and designed by Mark Wilson. Now, City of Myrkesh is a game for 2 to 5 players, ages 14 plus, and right around 60 to 90 minutes per playthrough. If you guys are interested to watch a playthrough of City of Myrkesh, I will go ahead and link my playthrough to the game somewhere up here in the top right hand corner. That's also going to be basically the how to play. So if you guys want to know how to play more a City of Myrkesh more in depth, I definitely recommend you guys check out that video. As always, before I dive into my review, if this is your first time watching a review from us, we go ahead and dive a little bit more deeper into some of these games than maybe some other content creators do. And so we go ahead and break the game down into 7 different categories. These categories are theme, components, setup, length, difficulty, replayability, and price. And so for each of these different categories, I'm going to talk about that specific aspect of the game, and I will go ahead and give it a number rating out of 10. All right, very similar to the BGG rating scale, so you guys can kind of understand and mesh that together. At the end of those 7 different categories, I will kind of wrap up with my overall rating, talk about some positives that I like, talk about some negative things that kind of bothered me a little bit with the game, and then we will finally wrap up our entire video. Since most of these games I do back are on either Kickstarter or GameFound, I'll kind of play like a little what if, right? If I had the opportunity to back this game again, would I do so? But alright guys, let's go ahead and jump right into my review here of City of Myrkesh, starting off with the theme. So I'm going to go ahead and give the theme a 9 out of 10 here. I think there is an excellent theme with the game. You can tell that with all of these district cards and things like that, that there really was a lot of effort and time put into the theme and the abilities of the game. Let's go ahead and jump down to the table. I'm going to show you how the mechanics of City of Myrkesh tie into the theme and why I gave this a 9 out of 10. Alright guys, so we are down here at the table where we would have a scenario set up for a 2-player playthrough of City of Myrkesh. Alright, like I said, the overall premise of the game, the theme of the game here is this monster has come in and invaded the city, and you are trying to work with the 5 districts here of this city, recruit these heroes of these 5 districts into your party, and by recruiting these heroes into your party, you are going to gain prestige points, right? You want to have the best heroes in the city, the most famous heroes in the city in your party. That's going to help you out. And then also you want to be dealing damage and do the most damage to the monster to defeat it, so this people of the city are going to recognize that, you know, you actually put the most effort in to trying to help the city by attacking the monster. And so, of course, like any deck building game, you're going to have a hand of cards. Each of these cards are going to have abilities and things like that, and you're going to be playing them and generating resources like gold and attack points and stuff, and you're going to use that to buy other cards around the board here from these districts, recruiting those heroes, and then using these attack points to attack the monster. Now, where City of Myrkesh kind of separates itself from other deck builders is they have a movement mechanic, a city traversal mechanic, and that's kind of what this game is marketed to be, a city traversal deck building game, where you would, instead of just playing your card face down and activating these abilities, I would play my card horizontally, foregoing any abilities or resources on this card to generate what is called a movement point. All right, and that movement is going to allow me to move around the board here to get to these other districts and get to certain spots, strategic spots of this monster here, because there's different sides of the monster that if you attack a certain side, a certain effect is going to happen. And so you have 3 different wound cards, right? A light wound, a heavy wound, and a bleeding wound. There are certain sides where you might just take a light wound. There are certain sides where you're going to take a heavy wound. So strategically, choosing that place to strategically maneuver and attack the monster is very key. So, this traversal mechanic is very prevalent in the game. I think they do an excellent job with that. Also, with the 5 different districts here, I love that each district is really good at its own specific thing. So like, if you want cars that are going to generate you a lot of gold, you want to go to the merchants row here and recruit these merchants, right? If you want cards that are going to be good at straight damage, you want to go to the wilds right here. Majority of these cards focus on attack, being able to do damage to the monster, right? If you want card draw, we want to go to the industrial grounds over here. And a lot of these cards are going to focus on card draw. If we want prestige points, royal purple prestige points, right? We want to go here to the royal courts, and they're going to get us a different type of prestige. And then last but not least, the Undercity is going to have mechanics that will mess with the other players on the table. So I really enjoy how each different district is good at its own thing, and it's so thematic, and also each district aligns with another type of district to provide you bonuses. So there'll be certain cards, and I'll zoom in here. You might see certain cards that at the bottom of these cards are going to have different bonuses. So this card would align with a royal court and an Undercity, where if you played any one of those cards, you would generate this bonus as well. So some of these districts work in tandem with each other, and they're going to do their own separate thing. So again, that's the kind of the mechanics of the game. You are playing these cards, recruiting these districts, moving around the map, and so thematically, this game does an excellent job of making you feel immersed, and the strategic options here are phenomenal. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump back up top to continue on with the rest of our review. Alrighty, moving on to the components. So as always, we are going to jump right back down to the table. I'm going to show off all the components and everything that comes with City of Myrkesh. I will also show off the storage and talk about all of that as well. All right, let's go ahead and jump back down to the table and talk all things components. All right, guys, back down here at the table, I'm going to go ahead and give the components an 8 out of 10. I think there's some great components with the City of Myrkesh. Obviously, the number one thing is this Hydra Mini. This thing is gorgeous. I love it. This is such a cool, awesome design to this thing. It's got 3 different types of heads. I wish I painted miniatures because this thing would look awesome painted, but this is kind of the marquee to the game, and it really does stand out and make it feel like this monster is attacking the city, because it is the biggest thing that you're going to see, and that's going to be the first thing to draw your attention. All right, let's talk about the board itself. A nice, clean, simple board. I do love the basic design to the board here, but also the different colors and how each district has its own separate thing with its own separate colors, and like even the city areas themselves, you can tell they are all somewhat different. So, it's hard. It might be hard to tell way out here, but if I zoom in a little closer, you can see here like the royal courts. There are larger buildings with more spaces here, reminiscent of like a courtyard or maybe more luxurious buildings, right? As we go out into the industrial grounds, you can see that there's more, looks like trash. There's like an industrial plant right here. So the designs here for the city on the board are really cool because they go, and that's another thing with thematics, right? With the theme of the game, they thematically coincide with that specific district. So that's really cool as well. Just a nice little touch. All the cards themselves, Man, there is 80 total cards, just speaking on the districts here. And what's really cool is not a single card is going to repeat itself, okay? So we have 80 different cards, each with its own unique artwork and ability, and that really, you can really tell they put a lot of effort and time here into the components of the game. In terms of everything else, right, these rubble tokens are going to come, some nice cardboard rubble tokens. I do really enjoy these purple prestige gems. I think those are awesome as well. We have basic blue cubes for the for your monster health. You got these cool little player pieces right here, these plastic player pieces, and you actually have a lot more. So we have a bunch of different color options right there. We have a lot of different aid boards. So monster aid boards, we have the player boards, which to track the resources. You have the resource markers of each player. These are cool little plastic pieces as well. Here is all the gems that come in the game. Here is the rest of the blue health tokens. And then we have these different status tokens, or these status aid sheets for everybody. And then of course we have the status tokens, which are cardboard punch outs. Okay, before I show you guys the box in the insert, yeah, so like I said, 8 out of 10 for me. Great components here. I think normally, like when you look at this game, it has kind of like an old school type vibe or feel to it. Like nothing super fancy, nothing really deluxeified, but you can tell they focused all of their concentration into the cards and the board in that presentation, and it really makes the game stand out, in my opinion. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the box here. So here is the insert of the box, and I have all of the 5 starting cards and pieces in its own individual thing. But of course, the monster miniature will go here in this little slot. You're able to fit all of the cards in this box right here, and then your tokens and resources in each of these 3 different slots. And then you would just stack all of your boards. You would stack your boards on top along with the player boards and everything that, and then the game board will go in between here, and everything will fit nice and snug in the box. But that is the storage solution here that they have for the City of Myrkesh. So again, I'm going to go ahead and give this an 8 out of 10. I think the components here are great. All right, guys, moving on to the setup. So I'm going to go ahead and give the setup an 8 out of 10. I think there's some great setup with the City of Myrkesh. Now, most deck builders have really quick and fast setup. There is going to be a little bit longer setup than most of your average deck builders, because you're not really setting out a market per se. You are setting out these 5 different district cards in their own specific spot. You're having to hand out the player boards and get the status tokens and really determine what monster health you want to play at. You want to play a short game, long game, and things like that. But it's never a longer setup that's going to make it feel tedious. This game is still very quick and easy to get to the table. And like I said, if you saw what I've done, I have, to make setup even faster, just gone ahead and put each of the 10 starting cards for each player with their tokens in those little baggies. So now all I gotta do is hand each of my players a little baggie, a board, and they have everything set up ready to go. So I think there's some great setup here with this game. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, 8 out of 10. All right, moving on to the length here. So on the box, it does say 60 to 90 minutes, and they hit that right on the mark. Most of your games, most of our 2-player games have been right around 60 minutes. 3-player games have been right around that 75, 80-minute mark. I have not played this game any higher than 3 players, but I'm sure with 4 or 5 players that the game is going to be right around that 90-minute mark. So I'm going to go ahead and give the length here an 8 out of 10. I think there's a great length with this game for one specific reason. Now, it doesn't say it in the rulebook, but in the rulebook itself, you can play a normal version of the game and then also play a long version of the game. And if you wanted to make a house rule, you could play essentially a shorter version of the game. So, like for example, in a two-player game, a normal game would be 24 health for the monster. A longer game would be 30 health for the monster, okay? I think you could maybe drop that down by 6, okay? And maybe 18 to 20 for a little bit shorter game. And what's cool is the game really doesn't change a whole lot, even when you kind of house rule the length of the game. So it gives you a ton of flexibility here with the length to say, hey, we want to get this game to the table, but we don't have time to play a full 60-minute game. Let's go ahead and shorten the health of the monster and kind of dive into it and accelerate that process, right? Now, you might not get the full experience and full immersion of the game by doing that, but it still allows you to kind of get one or two, more than one or two, obviously. Still allows you to get about 5 or 6 or more cards into your deck and really get that going to go ahead and get a shorter playthrough of City of Myrkesh. So I love how the game is super flexible with the playtime. If you have more time, you can play a longer game. If you have a standard amount of time, you can play that standard game, or if you're short on time, you can play a shorter game. So it's cool to see that different variability. So I think the length here is great. Alright guys, moving on to the difficulty. As always with our difficulty, the higher the number, the more challenging we feel the game is, and the lower the number, the easier we feel the game is. And I'm going to go ahead and give City of Myrkesh here a 4 out of 10. You know, most deck building games are very simple at its core, right? You got 5 cards in your hand or a certain number of cards in your hand. I play those cards. I get resources. I then use those resources to maybe attack something or buy something, whatever. And then I draw new cards. If my deck runs out, I shuffle those cards together, and then I draw my new cards. City of Myrkesh does add a little bit more to your traditional deck building games, right? Because it now adds in that city traversal mechanic, okay? And that mechanic is very simple, but that is something now to think about and that you have to strategize. You know, most deck building games I feel like there is some strategy in, but I do feel like it's pretty mindless, right? You know what cards you want to buy. You put that down, put my gold down. I'm trying to get a certain amount of gold to buy cards, and then I'm just focused on buying that card. Here with City of Myrkesh, there's this cool balance of I have 5 districts that I have to kind of look at and see what each of those cards do. And then, because every ability is different, and then, you know, you got status tokens you got to keep track of. You got the wound cards that you got to keep track of. Depending on where you hit the monster, you got that stuff to track. So there's a lot of different things and kind of moving parts with the game that you're going to have to keep track of, but it's never at any point confusing. Everything is pretty straightforward. All the abilities on the cards are super straightforward. If you ever get confused, the rulebook does a great job as a reference tool to go ahead and look at specific card powers and what exactly they do. And of course, like I said, they do provide you with monster aid boards, so you can see exactly what side of the monster when you hit that, what you're getting and things like that. They provide you with a board to kind of keep track of your resources as well. And then of course they provide you with a board for all the different statuses. So the game itself is not really that challenging. Everything is pretty straightforward and simplified. But the challenging aspect of the game is there's a little bit more mechanics than what you would find in your typical deck building game that you have to kind of plan for and account for with all those different card abilities as well. So that's why I kind of gave it a little higher than what I would a normal deck building game. So my difficulty here is a 4 out of 10. Alrighty, moving on to replayability. So I'm going to go ahead and give replayability a 9 out of 10. I think City of Myrkesh has excellent replayability. Like most deck building games, they do have good replayability. But here, I think it's just with these 5 different districts, and each district doing its own individual thing, there's so many different strategies that you can take, right? You can take a monster attack heavy strategy by just going for wilds. You can take I've won a game before where I didn't attack the monster maybe once or twice, and all I did was focus on the merchant's row and generating gold to buy expensive cards from all of the other districts, and I won because I was able to generate like 30 points from the cards that I bought at the end of the game. So, you can choose to just focus on one district the entire game. You can mix and match districts. You can focus on attack heavy with the monster. You can focus on buying cards. You can focus on messing with your opponents. So there's so many different ways to play this game and to go about playing the game that it really does have a lot of replayability and feels fresh almost every time you sit down and get this to the table. And so for that reason, I'm giving the replayability a 9 out of 10. All right, moving on to the price. So the cheapest I've been able to find this game is on boardlandia.com, and cool enough, if you guys do not know, we are ambassadors with boardlandia.com, and so by using our code gaming with the powers in all capitals, you can get 5% off. So you would be able to pre-order if you are interested in City of Myrkesh right here. Pre-order that on Boardlandia's website. You can use our code to get 5% off. And if you do, that total would be $41.80. All right. And I think for that price point of $41.80, with all the content and the stuff that you're getting in this game, I think that is an excellent price point, and I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10. Look, I just said that the value at that $40, basically 42 bucks, right? So for $42, the value I think you are getting is a great value. You're getting a game that has high replayability, a lot of different cards, right? And you don't blow through these cards very quickly. It's going to take you a couple of playthroughs to get through all the cards. I'm at 5 or 6 playthroughs of this game so far in the past week, and I have not gotten through every single card in every single district. The components that you're getting are quality. Overall, I just think this is a great price for the value of what you are getting for this game, and the ability to get this game to the table. You will really get your play value out of that. So I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move on to my overall rating now. If you guys were not aware, I did have the opportunity to preview and play test a prototype copy of City of Myrkesh, and so I went back and watched that video, and I originally gave this an 8 out of 10. After being able to play and look at the finalized version of the game here, I am actually more impressed with this finalized version and love how it turned out than the original prototype, and I am going to rate this game higher now than I originally did. So I'm going to go ahead and give City of Myrkesh a 9 out of 10. I think this is an excellent deck building game, and I'm going to stand on what I said in my original review and preview video, that this City of Myrkesh is a refreshing take on deck builders, all right? Some of the things I really enjoy about City of Myrkesh is, number one, that traversal mechanic that I have not really seen at all in any deck building game. This mechanic of I have to sacrifice a card in my hand to be able to move around the board to position myself to do damage to the monster and maybe not take a heavy wound and take a light wound instead, or to get around to the different districts to recruit a card that I need, right? Most deck building games, they have a 5-card market or some sort of market where everybody has access to all those cards, and boom, on my turn, I can just get the card I want. Not in City of Myrkesh, right? You have to strategically figure out, like, okay, I'm going to have to sacrifice some maybe resources to be able to attack the monster. I'm going to have to sacrifice some resources to move a couple spaces to get that specific card that I want before any other player can do that. And so there's so much more strategic depth to the game, I feel, with the City of Myrkesh than in a normal deck building game. All right. I also love the different strategies that you can take here with City of Myrkesh. It's not just a simple, okay, I'm putting my 3 cards down, trying to generate resources I can, trying to gain as many cards as I can, because that's what's going to give me the most points at the end of the game, like most traditional deck builders, right? This one, there's so many different paths to victory that you can take. You can do a monster attack heavy strategy and really snowball your opponents early if they are just trying to focus on cards. You can take a card heavy strategy and go with the merchants and get a lot of gold to buy a lot of cards, and you don't have to attack the monster at all. You can have a strategy of where I'm just going to buy 1 color of a deck and use those cards the whole time, or maybe just buy 2 colors. You can do a strategy where maybe I buy 3 or 4 different cards from decks and do different things. And so there's so many ways to play this game that's where it is refreshing every time you get it to the table. Like I said, this game has excellent replayability value because it feels refreshing every time you sit down and play it because of all the different strategies that you can take. I just really enjoy this game. Like I said, it is a refreshing take on a traditional deck builder, and this has quickly rose in my ranks as probably one of my favorite deck building games that we have in our collection, just for that unique traversal mechanic and the feel and presence of this game. All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk about some negative things I have, or some qualms, some small little qualms about the game. And I'm actually going to go back down to the table so I can show you what some of this stuff is. All right, guys, back down here at the table. So really, the only issues that I have with the game itself is one specific card, and that is this bleed card right here. And I'll actually bring this close. So for me, I just feel like this bleed card is just a basic card. I wish that maybe there was a different effect to this. Like, I mean, you look at the heavy wound card, right? And this heavy wound is very thematic, right? You can play this card. After you play this card, you have to place a light wound in your deck. So I'm playing a heavy wound, I'm getting healed, and now my heavy wound turns into a light wound, okay? And then this light wound is pretty cool because this allows you to remove some cards from the game or in your deck or discard pile. I think it's just your discard pile, actually. Allows you to remove cards from your hand or discard pile to gain these different resources and kind of cull your deck. So that does something. But this bleeding wound is not really, to me, thematic at all. It's just a basic, when you play this card, remove it from your deck. It's as simple as that. I wish that they had done something a little bit better with this bleeding wound card, like maybe if you have it in your hand, you have to discard it. Once you discard it, you discard the top card of your deck, right? Like you're bleeding. There's no rather effect that this bleeding wound did, or like what I wish they did is they made the light wound card basically the bleeding wound card, where when you play the light wound, you just remove that from your deck. And they made the bleeding wound card, when you get a bleed, right, you are forced to remove a card from your discard pile or a starter card this turn, right? Almost like you're bleeding. So I have to remove these cards from my deck, and sometimes it might be a card that I need. So that's one kind of issue that I had with the game. The next 2 issues are production issues that I know not everybody might encounter, but with these Rebel tokens, I wish there was a better fit with these a better fit here and made this entryway a little bigger. So you can already see when I put this rubble token down, right, it is supposed to encompass both sides of the row here, but you can see how it is not wide enough. So it covers parts of this. So when I have this card down, right, it is supposed to technically go in between. The card is supposed to fit in there, but you can tell it will not, right? I have to basically place this on top of the card. Now, that one is a little shorter. This one, I do believe, fits a little bit. So this one fits a little bit better, but you can still, it does still lean over. And again, I'll bring it down here so you can see. So the card does not fit in this little crack all the way. So again, this could just be a production issue with my copy, but I do kind of find that annoying because these rubble tokens are going to come out a lot, and I want them to kind of fit in there snugly, but they don't really. So that's kind of just an annoying little issue for me. And then the last thing is going to be the box size. So the game is the box is a little bigger, and actually let me put the cover on so I don't shake all this stuff around. So the box is a little bit bigger than I feel is necessary. Now, I definitely could be wrong, but you can see there's not a whole lot of components with this game, but this game is pretty wide in itself. So it does take up a little bit of storage. I mean, it's almost as big as the Tainted Grail core box. So if I get the Tainted Grail core box out here, you can see that this is the Tainted Grail. And actually, let me move this over just a little bit right there so we can really see. So this is the Tainted Grail core box. And so you can see that it is almost, I think it is as wide, if not wider, than the Tainted Grail core box. So I do feel like the box is a little bit bigger than it should be. But again, I was not the one that designed the game or designed the insert. The box might have to be this big to store all these components. But those are really the three issues that I have had with the game so far. So again, really only one mechanical issue. Everything else, I feel this game is excellent. Alright guys, last thing, wrapping it up. If I had the opportunity to back this game again, would I do so? And absolutely, positively, 1,000,000% yes, I would go ahead and back the City of Myrkesh. If you are a fan of deck building games, I highly, 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 highly recommend you head over to Boardlandia, use our code Gaming with the Powers, and pick this up for $41.80. I promise you guys will not be disappointed with your purchase, and you will really enjoy this deck building game. Alright guys, well that is the end of my review here. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you did, smash that like button, hit that notification bell, drop down in the comments below. What are your thoughts and opinions on what you've seen here? Do you think City of Myrkesh is a unique deck building game or a deck building game that you can get into? Drop all that down in the comments below. And as always, guys, if you are not subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and subscribe so we can keep bringing you some more awesome content. All right, guys, have a great one. Bye.